Hello, everyone. Good morning. Happy Wednesday, all. It is a very exciting 2026 over here. Gorgeous weather. I mean, it just cannot get better than that. If it is your first time joining us, hello, my name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicating to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. So on that note, I get to say hello to my favorite Wednesday person, Lori. Lori, I miss you every week. I'm not going to kid you. Like, we have so much fun
I
every
know.
single morning. Every week we have so much
We
fun.
do. We absolutely do. So, Sadie, today, what I was just thinking, because we were talking before the show, we have an unusual show today, right? We have, as you can see, 2 guests. We got 2 companies, 2 guests. It's going to be fantastic. But what I thought about it is I got to be the host with the most. Remember Beetlejuice? I'm like, okay, can this host pull off this? So I'm the hostess with the mostest today, if you will. So, with no further ado, I'm going to get started on my intro. It's going to be very short so we can make sure that we have plenty of time for this huge conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun today, guys. Wait till you see the roller coaster we're going to go on. So the webinars that I'm doing as of 2026 is very limited. As I said, it's the accounting and the CFO. I'm just going to always go quickly through this. Sadie will put the actual links in there just so you can get the dates in case you want to jump in on it. Upcoming for the remaining part of January. I didn't have everything there for you last week. Next week, we're having Lisa Medina come in. She is the owner of New Art Creative. And this is going to be another, I've got these wild rides. This is going to be another wild ride next week. I met Lisa as an SBDC client going through some of the filings and documents, etc. And as we had to review what was filed, what was not, she made this funny statement that she determined that this year was the year of adulting. And she was talking about how she's having to kind of look at her company and make all these great decisions. And I was laughing. I said, I think you could go on a whole road show with the year of adulting. And as we started talking about all the bullet points she had under this year of adulting, it was lessons learned from an entrepreneurship viewpoint. And that's what I'm all about. Let's have our guests share what they've learned. So I was like, okay, Lisa, you got to get on the show. You got to begin the year of adulting with us. And who knows, it might be her podcast she does after this. And at the end of the month, we're going to have Max come back on. He's a favorite on the show. And as you know, he gets involved in getting capital, whether it's financing, funding, loans, what have you. He's going to come on and say, is there money now? Where's money coming from? What's the catch on getting money? All those things about money. Okay, with no further ado, I'm going to just kind of give you a brief intro. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at 2 completely different companies, right? Different owners, but they have a theme. We'll talk about what that theme is, but nevertheless, even though they have a theme and a somewhat similar client, they have complete different structures. And so I think it's a fantastic look into something that I've said throughout the 3 years for those people that have followed me. I've always said that there's many ways to make money. There's many ways to be an entrepreneur. Just being an entrepreneur, poof, I'm an entrepreneur. Nobody gets paid to be an entrepreneur. They get paid to have a product or a service that's wanted in the marketplace. But there's many ways to do that. But each one has its own unique flavor. It has to have processes. It has to be organized. You have to be on top of it to make it work. So by looking at completely different business models in the same kind of theme, you start to look at it and say, wow, I see similarities, and I see differences. So that's my brief intro of this wild ride we're going in. Okay, with no further ado, let me introduce Laura and Sarah to you. So Sarah Peeler is a certified life coach and founder of Love Path Coaching. She believes that healthy relationships begin with unconditional love for ourselves and a deep, innate knowing of our own worth. We've talked a lot about on the show that we can talk about business and entrepreneurship all we want. We know it's how we feel about our self that's also going to affect our outcomes. So Love Path Coaching helps people come home to themselves and live in love and harmony throughout the day. Now, Laura Aybar is the co-founder and CEO of Invent Weddings, a outcome when you fall in love, a luxury destination wedding planning company based in LA and the Dominican Republic. With over a decade of experience and a background in interior and industrial design, she leads couples through a clear and intentional planning process with calm precision, and heart. Laura is known for her refined eye, strategic mindset, and commitment to creating elevated wedding weekends that feel deeply personally and the personal and thoughtful executed. Welcome, Sarah and Laura, to the show. Welcome, welcome.
Thank
Okay, so
you.
I have to say this. It was my own internal laugh. I thought to myself, you know what? Next week I maybe need a lawyer and a divorce attorney so we can follow this through to when it doesn't work. Sorry, I couldn't help that. I was like, okay, the beginning and the possible end, and maybe a tax lawyer or stuff, right? But anyway, I couldn't help that. So let's first start out. Sarah, we're going to start with you. So tell us, let's do this. Let's kind of find out. I know I read the intro to the company, but tell me a little bit about the clients you see and what you do. If I was to say, kind of give me an idea of what the company's like, and you just kind of give me a feel for it so we can start there.
Okay. I think right now the people that are navigating toward me are people that are seeking outside validation from other people. So they're in relationships, they're not finding the one, or they're in a relationship and it seems as though there's no love anymore, they have lost the love. Or they're a person that is like, I just date and date and nobody ever commits. So it's this person that is seeking all of this love from outside of themselves. And so there's a belief system there that they may not know that they have, and that belief system is like, I don't deserve love. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. But the actual truth is they don't love themselves. So if you do not love yourself and you do not have a standard for yourself, you will attract people who will see that, whether it's conscious on their part or not. And so people that come to me, I will say most of them, I just can tell that they're very sad. I'm not going
Yeah.
to link it to depression, although that could be the case, but I do see a sadness and I think there's a broken heart in there. And so what we're doing is I'm asking a lot of questions because just because I meet you doesn't mean I know you, even though you share a lot with me. I ask many questions that dig really, really deep and I get to the point. So I'm very direct. I do not want to waste your time and I want you to get the results you want, which is to be in love with somebody that actually loves and respects you and they love themselves as well, that they don't need you. Okay, they don't need you to survive and to live. They want you. And that ride is very exciting and that could be intoxicating in itself. But overall, the goal is we got to get you to love yourself or you're going to keep allowing people to come into your life and hurt you, or you're going to be stagnant, even if nobody's hurting you. So that's my
Yeah.
client.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's interesting, just as a side note, and this is I always tell the audience when I say, this is my own personal opinion. I never cornered the market on intelligence. I don't know everything going on, but, I'm also older and been on planet Earth for quite some time. But, we have known for so long that it's an inside job. We have to love ourselves first. But from my perspective, I feel like over the decades, I've been alive for decades now, I feel like the humanity is doing everything to get themselves out of love with themselves. I don't feel like we're making choices, even, communication between ourselves, between others, between social media, marketing, advertising, societal pressures. I feel like they all move us more away from loving ourselves than towards loving ourselves. I feel like if I went back into the 18th century, I'd probably love myself more by default in my environment than I would now. Now, an interesting aspect, and I want you to bring this into play too. So, you, Sarah, you have your own goals that you're going for. So, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now as far as coaching and where you're going in your career progression.
Okay, so I'm a certified life coach, but I like to say I'm a life coach that focuses on love. So you're not going to come to me if you want goals for your business. So we're not going to go there. We are going to talk about love, but ultimately unconditional love. But my long-term goal, I'm currently a student at Pepperdine University, and so I am going to become a licensed therapist. I'm also practicing, so I'm in practicum, and I have clients that I do therapy with. However, my coaching practice and doing therapy is completely different. Therapy, you're assessing and diagnosing, and there's a mental illness, okay? And with coaching, we're more focusing on goals, and we're breaking some cycles that you have. However, we're not focused on a diagnosis. So you're not coming in, I'm not diagnosing you. Okay, there's a lot of similarities, but overall, like the ethics of it, they're a little different, and the legal parts of it are a little different. Um, but ultimately, I my first goal ever was just to be a licensed therapist. So that takes many years. And I started later in life, and so I'm tired. So I'm just always tired. So if you're going to go to school in your 20s. So I'm 39 this April, I'll be 40. And so by the time I'm licensed, I'll probably be 41, almost 42, depending on my hours. However, I decided I may as well start my coaching practice because I could learn how to run a business. Because a lot of therapists want their own practice, but it's very stressful to run their business after they've taken all this time to become licensed. Now they have to figure out how to run a business. I'm like, I'm going to just learn it right now. And I want to help people and I want to do things my own way. So I got myself an office here in San Dimas. And so people can come here in person or telehealth. And so this is how you would see me if we do it virtually. This is my setup for virtual.
You know, I love this aspect on so many levels. I don't even know if I can remember all the levels that just went through my head. But first, before I get into the levels, I went to Pepperdine. I got my MBA. I started about 39, 40. Yes, it was a complete difference from the young kids, if you will, if I could say that, that went through. I did go through the presidential key executive, so I was around people mostly my age, if not older. But I found that at first I thought, oh my God, I'm older, I'm going back to school. But then I found that the depth of knowledge I brought to it, I really got a lot more out of it. So that's my Pepperdine statement. But regarding the layers, I think this is another thing of interest. Back in the days, I seem to be on this theme back in the days. If you went to school, you did this in this very pragmatic way. You went to school, then you got out, then you got a job, and you did this. You could see there's a little bit of a twist of opportunity and entrepreneurship that you could take your interest, experience business, go in as a coach, which doesn't require the certification. You are actually kind of like this fulfilling loop where you're experiencing, you're getting your hands in business, you're getting feedback about dealing with
Mhm.
clients, etc., which you're then learning the academia. I think it goes back to it's not in complete alignment, but it goes back to the underlining theory of what trade schools were supposed to be. Trade
Yes.
schools where you learn a trade and you experience that trade. You don't sit behind books until you learn yourself out of what life really is all about, which I think academia, me being involved and also had been a professor, does. So I love the mixture you're doing and how you're like, hey, let me get out there and make some money now and let me experience this and let me have goals. I think that there's a nugget in there that can be savored by so many people within the audience to think about what am I putting off that I can at least sample a little bit now. And I tend to do that in my life. I try to think, do I really have to wait? Or, we go from I'm either going to wait or I'm going to go full blown. There's this in between. And I think that's where the sweet spot of life is, that in between part. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, Laura. So we know you do weddings. There's this LA and Dominican Republic, which immediately goes, okay. So tell us about the company. What does the company do?
So I'm a destination wedding planner. I am originally from the Dominican Republic. I moved to Los Angeles 5 years ago. So I started my business in Dominican Republic, and when I moved here, not knowing where to start, I had my partner with me. Her name is Swani. We were like, what are we gonna do now? Like, you're leaving, you're the one that knows the planning. So how are we going to continue this
Yeah.
business? So funny enough, like we didn't even know how it happened, but we both started doing what we enjoy doing the most. I love speaking with clients, connecting. So I started doing the sales. And she is amazing at operations, designing. So she started doing whatever had to be done on site. And that's how we kicked off our business. So now we have the business here in LA. So it's an LLC, but we also have the business in DR. So that's where we are based on both countries.
Wow. Okay. Now that is another fascinating, once again, entrepreneurship. See, this is where I love it because I feel like when you take a layer and we call it entrepreneurship to have a word to call it, and it brings to us opportunity, freedom, ability to blend a life we desire with business outcomes and money. That's the true style of it. When it's just a ends means to an ends within itself, and people say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but they don't know how they're going to make money. I think that's missing the whole point of it. And I go back to a memory that I had that, starting my company at 25, I had to have this actual office and this phone answering service because that's what the society wanted. You had to look legit. I didn't need a person answering the phone, but that's what you had to have. And then I remember one day, years later, decades later, being in a Starbucks line on a phone, making a business deal and saying, just a second, oh, non-fat latte, right? And I was like, oh my God, how it changed. Lori, was conducting the same business, but what I had to pay for that I didn't need, and this persona I had to create, society no longer required. And look at the flexibility and the ability I have to experience freedom that I didn't before. And Laura, yours is a great example. The other thing I have to say comes to mind, because in my private company, I've worked for years with companies that are like 20 to 60 million, have several partners, and they're always fighting about who does what, and they have to do job descriptions so there's not overlap and people not stepping on each other's toes. You guys just naturally went into your own corner, which is the most beautiful way to figure out what two business partners are going to focus on in a way that's healthy and works for the company.
Absolutely. I always think that we were so lucky that we found each other because we are like the perfect balance. She does, like as I mentioned, all the operational part while I do all the planning and strategy. So it basically like was in sync automatically. And something that I always mention, Sarah, that I think helped us put everything together was actually coaching. So in the beginning, where we didn't know where to go, we were just doing whatever we could. We were in the beginning, even I would say, doing a hobby because we were making so little money. It could be actually a hobby. And we found our first coach that helped us create packages. So with
Okay.
packages, we were
Yeah.
able to sell something without offering the business first and then
Right.
getting paid, because we were sometimes doing all of this work and not being paid for it. So with coaching is that we were able to structure more and like be where we are right now.
Yeah, and it's so funny when you say hobby. I find too many entrepreneurs are not just a hobby business; they're actually a charity.
Yes, we used to say that.
Yeah, I'm like, stop being your own nonprofit here. You need to get paid money. Stop being in fact, I deemed at the beginning show of this year that we were not going to focus on being an entrepreneur anymore. We were going to focus on being a profitable entrepreneur. I said, this is the year of
Yes.
profitable entrepreneur. Okay. So what I find interesting, and to bring it together, because I had to ask you guys before the show how you met. You met because you lived near each other. But I want you to extrapolate it on Sarah, because I loved what you said, is having someone else to talk to that was a business person. So talk about your meeting, and then let's delve into the importance of just having someone else in the same world that you can chat with.
Well, first of all, I when we moved to the Orchard in the Azusa. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Azusa, but it was a brand new luxury apartment place. And so I was ready to just stay to myself. I don't want to meet anybody. And here comes this beautiful woman who moves next door with her husband, and I'm living with my husband. And I'm just like, my husband talked to her husband and they became friends. I thought like, let's go out to eat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to meet another person. Who do I need to meet? And thank God, Laura has such a very warm, welcoming essence that I was like, oh, I already knew instantly, like, we're going to be friends. And so she told me she was a wedding planner, and I was still in undergrad. So now I'm in graduate school, but at the time I was in undergrad and struggling. But she honestly would like motivate me, like, keep going to school, keep doing it. You could do it, you could do it. And there's times where I was like, I don't think I could do it. Like, this is really hard. And so our relationship was really about, it kind of was around like entrepreneurship and being motivated and thinking about what aligned with ourselves. And then eventually, as I grew and knew what I wanted to do, we just our conversations got deeper and deeper. But I will say a lot of our conversations do revolve around love, about how much we love our husbands and how healthy this our relationships are right now, that they haven't always been healthy, not with our husbands, with like previous partners. And so we always come back to love, and I know that we want that for everybody. So that's always been a topic, business and love. So it is very funny that we're here right now.
I
I,
love that combination. I love that combination. Okay, no pun intended. But I think, and I've said them so many times on the show, is that at the end of the day, we always have to remember we're humans. You know, we get into these titles. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business. You're a friggin' human being. In fact, I had somebody this a long time ago, get into all these discussions about the biases in the world and everything. And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we look at each other and go, human? I think it breaks through everything, right? So I love that conversation. Laura, you get to give your side of meet and Sarah.
well, yeah, like she said, we met in our apartment complex. The first time I met her, I felt so welcome and felt so good speaking with her. And as she said, we always spoke about business, love, and whatever was going on in our lives. I would say what I love the most is that we always had deep conversations, and that we're revolving into being better, getting better. And I feel being an entrepreneur is a very lonely place to be.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have like coworkers, you don't
Right.
have anybody else to speak with. So connecting with somebody else that has similar goals or that is going through the same path, um, I think it's really, really nice. And it feels like you can connect, you can speak about like what you're going through your business or what things are going on with life. Because as an entrepreneur, I feel like it's different because it can get lonely.
It can. And it's so true. And as you're both speaking and I'm watching your faces and expressions and feeling your energy, it's like the universe made no mistake putting you next to each other. I just feel like this was a predetermined situation, and maybe even to be on the show. So one of the parts that I'd like to talk about now, like I said, and guys in the audience, you can see we got two different companies. We've got a theme called love here. We absolutely do. But these are completely different business models, different structures, different financial overhead, different complexities. So what we're going to do now is kind of ask the same questions of both Laura and Sarah and start to pick apart what it is about a business model that makes you have to focus on this versus that, etc. And I'm going to take you down the pathway and you're going to see it. But as we unravel, we'll see we've got the same theme and we have different clients, but not. We got about the same customers. They're wanting to be in love, and many of them are wanting to get married and go on a cool wedding destination, right? So we're not like we're focusing with, a couple that wants to get married and a CFO, as you pointed out, of a company. We got similar clients, we got similar themes, we got this, but we got completely, if we were to take it and just look at it from business models and the way it's got to be structured, we got night and day. And so the overarching theme that I'm going to explore now is that there are so many ways to make money. You have to really know what you're selling into the marketplace and who your customer is and what they buy, but you have to create a structure that is really I call it the 3D monopoly. You know, we can sit down and talk about being human and being in love and all this stuff, and it sounds wonderful. Then we sit down and we have to get the mail, have to fill out the tax documents, and reality hits that we are still in a very structured world. And whether we agree with the game or like the game, we got to play the monopoly game, because that's the game we're sitting around to play, right? That's the game we have to play. So I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, because when we first met, I think it was to talk about structures. How are you going to structure your company? What do you need to be considering? And in that, I think we talked about legal structures and which to consider. So let's start with you. We'll start on the simpler side with Sarah, because when we get to Laura, it's going to be like, whoa, okay, we got lots more layers. So let's start with a little bit more simple. There's no such thing as simple, but less complicated, I should say, business model, where I know you're offering consulting and what you're doing, but we really can look at this as a service business, that you are providing the service personally, right? And you don't have the infrastructure that is required in others, but it is only your time you're selling. And so you either make the money or you don't. So you see that it's a simple business model, but it also has a different financial structure. So let's start with the structural setup. What did you have to consider when you said, okay, I want to be a coach? What does that mean exactly? And I'm not going to direct you in any way, Sarah. I'm just going to say, what does that mean, and let you go from the business side of it, what you had to consider.
Time. Time has been, it's on my side. I'm going to think positively for 2026. But I'm in graduate school full time. I also have a full-time job, which is a remote job, which is also why me and Laura connected, because she worked remotely. So a remote job, you're just as lonely, by the way,
Oh,
because
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
really see
yeah,
your
true.
coworkers.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was time, and I also see clients for my practicum. So I provide therapy 10 to 11 hours a week, in addition to just having a life. So I had to grapple with time, and how am I going to not squeeze in like my coaching sessions, but how am I going to make this work? And so I have individual coaching sessions available, but I am going to start moving toward couples and or workshops, where now I'm having people, instead of seeing them 1 hour per week, maybe I see a couple for like a 3 or 4 hour workshop, and it's intense. Okay. And
Mhm.
we see how that goes. And if they feel, wow, we made some realizations and breakthroughs, and we broke some cycles in that little workshop, maybe they could come back another time. That way, I'm not doing 4 different sessions, 4 different days, 4 different hours. Instead, I'm doing it in one day. It's condensed, it's intense. And that's how I am. I like to be
Yeah,
direct. How do we fix the problem, and how do we gain clarity? Clarity is one of the, I would say, clarity. Clarity, even though maybe it doesn't push you to change, it gives you perspective. Okay, so I really had to grapple with time. That really was my thing. And I just decided it's going to work out. I don't know how it's going to work out. And it just keeps working out. The hours I
yeah,
have is the hours that the client is available. It's just absolutely amazing. Even with my school schedule, for the first time in 5 years, I forgot to put an alarm so I could go enroll in my classes, and I missed the day and all the classes were gone. And that meant I was going to have to get whatever they give me. And I freaked out for like a week, and my husband was like, it always works out for you when it comes to this stuff. And I was like, oh, you're right. And I was like, and it will. And it worked out even better than if I could have programmed it myself with school. So,
yeah, yeah. Oh, so I have, once again, layers and layers, because what you said, on the surface will make it say, oh, time. But I've got like 3, 4 points that I got out of that I want to share with the audience. But I want to comment, because you always end up saying something at the end that just strikes me so personally. I have tried to learn that too, because everything that doesn't work out works out. And if only I can start to recognize that at the beginning and save myself the emotional drain, it
yes.
would be like, oh my God. So that's my goal this year, is to realize that the self-implied deadlines are not necessary, and to start learning to live in the situations that are being handed to me and make good of it. So thank you for reminding me of that. But, you know, time is so important when we talk about service-based businesses. In fact, in my CFO series, when I talk about service-based businesses, I literally say that they think they don't have raw materials. I'm not making a chair, I'm not making something, right? But the raw material for a service-based business is time. And it's actually a more challenging raw material because I could buy more wood easily and store it. I can't buy and store time. And what a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize, that the body and the mind has a limit. So like you said about what I'm going to use your word, and Lauren, we're going to talk about this in a minute, packaging. I talk about, and I use kind of a word where I made this up a long time ago and I hear it used more now, is that service businesses need to productize themselves. And that means packaging. So whereas meeting with 4 people in 4 hours, and I know this from my own consulting, can be like, I feel like I just got ran over at the end. Meeting with 4 people in a group session equaling the same finance, because I'm not spending 4 hours, can move them along, bring a value, and allow me to do it again. Because at the end of the day, you can't. I always say that, I can go out in my yard and shovel dirt for 8 hours. I can't consult over 4 and I'm drained, right? So there is a limit of the ability of the person in a service-based business. I don't care if you're doing consulting, you're doing a massage therapist, you're doing acupuncture, it doesn't matter, you're doing design, you're doing web design. The brain and stuff only has a limit. So I always talk about service-based businesses having to really focus on how that time factor comes into play and try to get where they can productize themselves so they can have some kind of packages or side products for a passive income, because exhaustion sets in very quickly. And I love how you pointed out all the things you're doing in the life, because once again, going back to the entrepreneurs that are being like schooled on being an entrepreneur, they don't realize the amount of time it takes. And they think that if they got 20 hours, they got 20 hours to be in front of clients. They don't realize that 10 of it is unbillable marketing and all this stuff. So I love that the first thing you brought up was the fact time is a consideration, because you won't hear that in other entrepreneurial shows talking about time to the degree you did. So, Laura, I'm going to go to you. You ended up with the packages. You were trying to figure all over it. And I got to believe that you've got some logistic nightmares that your partner takes care of, lovely. But you also have got to have some processes that you have to have mapped out perfectly to make everything work. So tell us, just like Sarah did, what's the structure in your business that you had to consider and you have to get right to be successful?
Okay, so when we started, it was only me and my partner. So we were doing everything. We were planning, sales, doing the design, execution. And there was a point that we said, like, we cannot keep doing all of these by ourselves. And we thought that was going to be solved by getting an assistant. Um, but
Oh, I got to go there as soon as you're done. I got to so go there. Keep going. Love this.
but it didn't happen. So we noticed that we needed to grow the team in a way that we could, buy ourselves some leverage. And like we added more team, but with no clear systems, it was still like a mess.
Yeah.
So what we started doing, and this was again with our coach, we started putting together like what these positions were going to do, very clear in a 1 page, and that gave us structure. However, I'm still building that system. Something that I always do when I see something is not working, I always see it as an opportunity to grow. I see it like sometimes even aha moments, like why I didn't think about it before. And I heard once that that's what we do as entrepreneurs founding this business. We're founding something, we're putting together something that probably hasn't been done before. So right now I'm structuring the business. Last week, we actually created our diagram of like all the positions and who reports to who. And that has helped a lot, even to us, to understand like actually
Yeah.
who is doing what. And we're actually creating right now like more detail, like descriptions of everybody's tasks and the KPIs, because we didn't have that either. So it's I think it's a learning process, and just keep going, keep looking for the best way to do things, and it's a process.
Yeah, because you have to align a lot of third parties, I'm assuming, hotels and planes, and or I'm assuming, I'm not sure to which degree you can tell us, but you've got, if you will, it's an older analogy. Some of you guys may remember this in the audience that are older, but the spinning plate concept. They used to have this thing on the show and they would spin plates. You got all these spinning plates that have to happen seamlessly because I don't know this for a fact, but I got a belief that you have a bride that has one thing go wrong, as minor as it is, and that could be devastating. So you've got to get close to perfection. So give us an idea of the amount of orchestration, if you will, that you have to do to pull this off seamlessly.
It is a lot of orchestration, and we have created. We call it in Invent the in journey. So it's basically the system and journey itself of the couple. We divide it in quarters in a way that we know everything that is supposed to be happening, and that's the way we guide the couples, to make sure they know what's supposed to be happening. I actually had an aha moment this week, because our core right now is planning and design, but we're also doing destination weddings. So I'm like, we are missing travel, because that's something so important that our couples need. They need guidance in like booking hotels and all of these things. So I was like, I'm missing that important core as part of my package as well, but because I've been doing it, um, I don't know, without any structure. So
Right.
that has been like an issue to us. And I was like, this is exactly what's missing, that core part. And that's something we're going to start adding and making sure the experience goes better. But it's just like seeing the things that are missing and putting them together, I would say. But a system, it's very important to make sure that everything goes in
It
plan.
absolutely is. You know, Laura, I'm as happy that you brought up structure and systems as I was that Sarah brought up time, because you hit another one of my soapbox things I talk about. I remember back in the day, once again, I'm going through down memory lane, but when Amazon first came into be, so that's some time ago, and what was happening at that time. And I was just noticing, because I noticed trends, and I found it very fascinating that unlike the previous company darlings that were rising to fame, they were similar in the Walmart business model. It was all about processes. Amazon doesn't make anything. They just and they sell things, you could say, but I really think their claim to fame is their organization in the processing, bringing it to market, getting it sold online, getting it to your front doorstep. Good or bad or ugly, they do succeed pretty close to perfect most of the time, right? And so I started being amazed at how much processes were the special secret sauce of the successful companies. Because if you didn't have a process, now when you were a old type of business structure, say you had pipelines or something, process was inevitable because you had to go, where the hell am I going to put the pipe, right? So process evolved by default. But when the technology came into play, many companies failed to look at the process as being an important element, and they failed where people who saw the process as being the key ingredient created such a process that the experience was different, and they succeeded greatly. Then, as I was doing a lot of turnarounds as a CFO going into troubled companies, I started noticing that this trend among many. And so my client base was like a 20 to 60 million. And I would see where the companies would get to a certain point, maybe they'd go past the million, but as they started, especially the ones that were 5 to 10, they got kind of like just stopped as they're running down the street. They didn't have the processes in clients started purchasing. It was chaotic, mistakes were made, and all of a sudden they were crumbling. And if they wanted to grow, they had to go back and go, no, you can't sit and shout over to Mary the orders, because when Mary's on vacation and John's there, you have no organization. It falls through the cracks. So they had to do manuals and think who speaks to everybody. And I also had a company that I saved so much money and helped increase profitability by doing one thing, saying, no, guys, you cannot email everybody in the company every email to save your ass to feel like you're covering yourself. This person communicates with this person, etc. So we can't overlook the need for structure, just like you're saying, Laura, and you're now getting very structured. And a lot of times I think entrepreneurs look at their company and they say, I'm too small for such structure. We get along so well, we don't need it. And that is so untrue. Or we don't have to really document our time. So I want to, before I leave this fascinating discussion, I'm going to go back and let Laura and Sarah both comment on time or structure, what you're seeing as the importance. And did you see it in yourself, not at first realizing? I feel like if I could walk away and the audience hears one thing about time and structure collectively and does a self audit, we will have succeeded in some help to our audience today. Sarah, I'll start with you now. Just on this concept, time and structure, or anything else you want to throw in, how you saw it being an important part. You already expressed time. Was structure also something you had to incorporate to have the client experience proper?
Well, I would say building the website and making sure that the website kind of guided the viewer in a way that is not
Mhm.
confusing. And actually, you guys helped me a little bit with that. So that was really cool. And I would say that don't not make your website because it does feel intimidating, but I think that that structure. So I know that's not like a bunch, it's not like as complicated as what Laura's doing because I really just need the person to call me. That's what I want them to
Yeah,
do. I
yeah,
want them to
yeah.
call me. And so making that structure on the website was eye-opening for me because it also helped me realize how I would open with a conversation when I get a call. Or the really cool thing is when I got this office in San Dimas, my client, or I didn't know he was a client yet. He was the, I shouldn't say where he's from either. I'm trying to keep everything confidential. He was from some business that had come to my business and helped my business. And he was like, what do you do here? And I was just setting up. And it was really cool because he became one of my clients because he saw the building. So you might put these structures in, but then you're like pleasantly surprised that you get your leads from like something so random, like not your website. So,
It's so true.
yeah,
Yes.
so the structure is important. I do know structure is important, but I haven't really had to dabble in it just yet. I think I'm gonna face it if I start putting together workshops and something like that. Yeah.
That absolutely will. But one of the words that you said that's so important is you said guide the client. So even the website has structure, because I think, once again, you hear all the marketing people and the social media leading entrepreneurs to say, who's your client? What's your demographics? I'm not saying those don't matter, right? But that's all they're being said. And I think two important questions that I wrote down that I feel like a lot of companies miss their mark is, what am I purchasing from you? And how does it work? You notice like clients just want to know, what am I purchasing exactly? What am I getting? And how does this work? And I think that lack of clarity, using your word, is where lawsuits come up. And not that many people are being sued, but that's where you get disgruntled, clients, because they thought they were getting this. In other ways, well, another way of saying it is having structure does not only allow you to deliver the consistent proper product or service that you're saying you're going to deliver, but it also, in clarity, creates expectations, which leads to better outcomes with clients. I feel like this could be like a business teaching that we're doing with live examples here as I'm going along. Didn't expect it to be, but I feel that's so true. So structure and then guiding the client through the process so they understand what they're buying and how it works to buy from you is so crucial. I did that on my website early on to say, well, this is what I sell, this is the process, this is what you go through. And I would get people that were choosing between a couple advisors and they would choose me, and I would ask later, they go, well, I fully understood what happened. And I think when you create any confusion, people don't then make a decision.
I want to add one more thing. If you
Please.
have a brick and mortar shop, because now I have my own little spot here, you can always, and I know this might be obvious, but like if you have a service business, it might be confusing. just put your services on the window. Because right now
Oh,
I just have the sign Love Path Coaching. And I know for a while, because I was still designing like what I was going to put on the window, I was like, I know people are wondering what the heck this is. And so I have a Ring camera and
uh-huh.
I put all my services up and I could see people going and like they get their phone to get the QR code or they're reading.
Oh,
So,
okay, that's
so make
awesome.
sure you're very clear or leave a sign on your door if you're not there. Like there's all these things you could do if you have a brick and mortar shop. Make it very clear on the window. That's just something new that came up for me in the last couple weeks.
I think it's a good point. When it comes to clarity, you know how you talk about love, you got to know yourself first. I think in order to have clarity and structure to your client, you got to know your internals first. I think so many entrepreneurs really, they don't know and they bring their confusion. I offer this and then I offer this and then I do this
Yes.
and I also do this.
Yeah.
That's a classic thing. And then at the end, you're going, so what exactly do you do? And that doesn't give you confidence to buy from them. So I think you've got to get clarity within yourself on what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and your processes before you can even communicate it externally, or that confusion comes through to the client, which isn't going to help you in the purchasing. And if you're not speaking directly to the client, it comes through in your marketing. It's confusing. There's not consistency in it. Consistency is one of those things that bring such strong, comforting emotions to humans and allow them to go forward. We look for consistencies to make us feel like something's legit. Somebody we want to have as a long-term partner. They are consistent in their actions. We can count on them. We can trust them. I don't care whether we're talking about technology or what kind of business model. Those things have never come out of fashion. Those are more important now because we look at everything fake news, fake this, fake that, right? I think that consistency, clarity, and ability to gain trust is our secret sauce to success today. I really do. Laura, I'm going to let you just take the stage and comments you'd like to add.
Yeah, so just to recap a little bit, I think we are in the wedding world working with something that can be chaotic if you don't add systems and if you don't put structure. I think in my business, if you ask me what are the things that I think has helped us scale, would be putting attention to structure, working on systems, um, doing evaluations. So every wedding, we do an evaluation where like, what can we celebrate? What are the things that could have been better? What are the alerts that can never happen again? And those are inputs for us that we will use in the future. So to create a system or to create something that will help us. We always try to document processes. That way, like if somebody new comes, they know what to do. And I think, and I'm never going to be tired of saying it, like having coaching throughout this whole business process has been amazing to us, has been a way to grow faster and has been just life changing. And I can see the difference between people that are doing it themselves and people that have been guided by somebody that has experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually was thinking, it's so funny on the same wavelength when you were talking, I was thinking that coaching really has paid off for you because as we're having this conversation, if someone wasn't aware of the time you've been in business or the size of your company, they would think that this is a huge company because of the conversation, these specifics we're talking about. So what's very fascinating is you didn't go into it with the knowledge you're speaking today. You went into it and learned the hard way. You did, oh my God, this isn't working. I need to do this now. So you've came to that same conclusion. I always say that I think for me, and I've been at this a long time, and once again, it's just my opinion. Although market and market demand and what you're offering plays into it, I really see the biggest deterrent of success or what determines success and failure is one, knowing your numbers financially. So you know if you're making money and you charge the right thing, which you know what, we're going to go to you first on that, Laura. And then the other one is having a structure and process and clarity in place because so many people may know exactly what they're doing, but they didn't know how to price their services and they weren't charging enough. So they couldn't go forth with it. And they end up saying, well, it just didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you didn't have a cost structure that worked properly, or you had a cost structure, but you were so chaotic, you used your resources in not an intelligent, efficient way. And so I don't think it's market and funding and all those things that play in as much as knowing your finances and understanding your cost structure and then having a structured process behind that. So in that aspect of getting into really, if you will, the nuts and bolts, you have to make sure you consider all the financials that you're having to pay out for the trips, et cetera. And then you've got to figure out all the talent and everybody you got to rely upon. Then you got to make sure it's enough money for both you and your business partner to be able to make it make sense to be in and put a price on that. So I have to believe I'm taking a jump here, Laura, but with you being so well skilled now on structures and processes, I can't imagine that your coaching or experiences didn't have you walk down some kind of financial learning process as well. So I will leave it open so you can take us down anywhere that you've experienced or would like to comment on.
For sure. So the financial part has been a real challenge for us. I think for me and my partner, we love what we do, but we are not number people. So it has been a challenge for us, especially because when we started, we were trying to understand how it would be to have a company in the DR and having a company in the United States. So we were trying to understand like how we're going to make this work. Is it going to be one company? Do we need two companies? And it wasn't until like 3 years ago, actually, that we came up with an accountant that has business in DR and business in the United States.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
yes, and she explained to us, you need to have two companies. You need to have them as sister companies. Like they might provide to each other, but you don't have one company, you have two because you are in two different locations. So it has been a learning process for us. We, with help of coaching, started from very early on working on yearly budgets. So we do know like our yearly budget, what can we spend, what not. Every beginning of the year, we work on that. And also something that has helped us is like we always put the profitability that we like, you know, we want to make from that budget. We always try to do like between 15 to 30% like over profit from all expenses. And it's been a process. I cannot say we're at 100%, but we're trying until we get it in the spot that we want.
Just having acknowledgement of a number and a goal and looking at the numbers to see if you're getting there or not is key. And you're absolutely correct, because a lot of times I do have people with companies in different locations, sometimes out in the United States. So the way that the accountant set it up is that you've got your own entity. So you got your own profitability with each entity, but at the same time, you've got the personal relationship with you and the partner that you got to make sure it makes financial sense as well. So what I always tell people is that we can get together, shake hands, make this wonderful thing. It can be a great idea, but the structure legally behind it, financially, tax-wise, is a lot more complicated than one would ever see it. Well, kudos on all that, because that was pretty complicated to, yeah, absolutely. And it goes without saying, I tell people all the time, I am a DIY person. I am not opposed to doing things on your own. I always use this as a classic example. I've taught myself I've been doing a lot of construction on a piece of land that I bought, and I taught myself to use a table saw on, YouTube Academy, right? So, I mean, that's like scary shit DIY. I'm not against DIY, but as a weird example, I would rather teach myself to use a table saw on YouTube than to have somebody do their own legal structure when they have any complexity in it, because it's got so many different things. At least the table saw is very simple. Keep your fingers off the blade. I can understand and take the actions to do that, right? But with legal, you're like, well, you got to figure this, and then this impacts this and impacts this. So a lot of our companies are not learned off of social media. It's not a DIY at all. But yeah, thank you for sharing on that. Now, Sarah, I got to believe that when you went from, at first you didn't have a little office, right? And now you have a little office. That changes the money. And I always tell people that when they start pricing their product or services, they're working at their kitchen table. They have no expenses whatsoever. They price it accordingly, like there's no bills at all. And suddenly, when they add a bill, they're losing out on their own money because they didn't bake in what the future may hold. Are you starting to experience that? And how did you approach then having the rent? I know you didn't take on a huge rent, which was a smart move, but still, you have an expense you didn't have at the beginning, I'm assuming, and you have to make sure you account for that. Any comments in that area?
Well, I will say it, I don't want to say that it was selfish of me to get this place. It's just so beautiful and it has all the space I want and it has okay, first of all, Laura saw it. She was blown away. She almost fainted. So
Beautiful.
that was one. I knew I needed to make her faint. If she could faint, then I'm good because she's a wedding planner. So I just thought, as long as I have that environment, I want to bring people together. We're all disconnected. We're like, look, I wish we could have done this in person, right? I'm glad we have the technology, but how much more fun would it have been to be together in the same room? So I have the space for a podcast. I have a space for the workshops I want to do and for free
Right.
workshops I want to do for like teenagers and stuff like that. So I have the space. So it was selfish in terms of like, this is going to be expensive. It's not, it is a pretty penny, this place that I got, because it has one, two, three, it has four rooms, its own restroom, its own
Oh, you
kitchenette.
do have a bigger place than I thought, but
Yeah,
you've got a plan to grow
I
into
do.
all that.
I do.
And the other thing is you've got other resources
I do.
financially to support
Yes.
you as you grow your business into it. And
I want to add to that. I want to add to
oh,
that.
please.
So I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I've decided that this is what I want to do with some extra money that I have. And I use it also for school and I use it for my remote job. So I really made sure that I created a space that I'm going to actually use and I use it every single day. And I even use it for my telehealth for school and practicum. Like I said, I do my telehealth here and I can also do my coaching here, but I do want more in-person coaching. Again, I'm here in San Dimas and I want to get some other business owners over here. I want us to have more community in person. And so I do have the funds. So I just don't want people to think that I just need to go and get a brick and mortar business because I want to. Like you do need to have the
Right.
funds and you do need to be able to budget it and you need to have the vision. Um, I don't know. I guess that's all I could say right now.
No, I like that. You can see I'm like doing my little notes here. I'm doing my little notes. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm as we get to the end, I'm going to make a few comments and then I'm going to send it back to both of you. And I may be able to tie this together as much as I have it in my head. I may not. And Sarah, your last comments fed into my thoughts on this. You know, I think during this conversation, with this same theme, generally same client, but complete different structure, and this lovely relationship these women have as friends and be able to share collectively, it's been a unique look into different things about businesses and business structures. And I think we saw that no matter what size or where you are or what you're offering, understanding that you have to have processes in place, that having the structure in place is important, and that time feeds into it. Don't take it out because you can't see it, hold it, and smell it, that it's not a key component. So I think having processes, a good structure, time, financial understanding, all this, these are the key components to success or failure. They're not hidden truths. They're not something we got to go find that doesn't exist. They're old as business themselves. They just need to be brought into an awareness and need to focus on it. I have also said that there's no right or wrong. Like people want to pick up this blueprint and they want to, in a lazy way, my personal opinion, just be told what to do to be a successful entrepreneur. And I don't think that exists. I think you have to understand the key components and apply it. Just like as you were talking about Sarah getting this office. Yes, you got this office. Maybe it's not from an asset utilization, I would say, in business school being fully capitalized on, but it will be and it can be. But more importantly, you have the funds and have made a conscious, aware decision to utilize them. And in that, they're bringing so many opportunities to you. And if you suddenly had this opportunity to go after this huge workshop and you got clients signed up, you got it. You're not looking for space. You got it. You got it right there. So the more you use it, the less it's going to cost, right? And the key component in that is not, I see so many entrepreneurs doing the other way around. I really don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I'm going to get enough clients and I'm just going to get it and hope it all works out. That is, to me, a setup for failure. And I see it every single day that I'm consulting. You did it different. You said, okay, yeah, I'm really not paying for it justifiably in the business, but I'm going to use it here and I got the funds and this is what I want to experience. And that brings me to the last part. And I say this a lot. When I was in my 20s, I was very programmed by the world at the time, and my intense desire and motivation to be whatever successful meant, right? And so what I did is I tried to find, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I got these goals, I got to make this much money, I got to have this. And that drove me for so many years. It allowed me to succeed, but it didn't create a life where I was like, enjoying every moment, enjoying the journey, at peace, doing the fun things I really should have been doing at certain times in my life. It wasn't until I twisted it differently in an older time period in my life that I said, you know what? I am not going to focus on anything but asking myself this really simple question. What do I want to experience in my life now? What do I want to experience on a daily basis? And I have been driven for the last 20 years based on, if you want to call the word goal, let's take the word goal. It's what is my goal of experiences I want? And you two just strike me that you're doing things that you want to experience right now. And in this experience and this clarity and this structure and these processes and this acknowledgement that you have to have funding behind you so you're not a charity, you're actually succeeding. And who knows where you'll be in a couple years with this platform you have now. That is my summary of today's show. But Laura, I'll start with you since you were dragged into this with Sarah. You get to go first. Final words you'd like to say.
I think I would say that being an entrepreneur is a journey. You can see it in different ways. You can think it can be overwhelming, but I would say if you have a mind shift, it can be so exciting. Every time there's like an opportunity that comes in, and an opportunity to grow, to see things, how they can get better. It's just so exciting how much you can learn about things and to build the business itself. So I just think it's a journey, one day at a time, and just building your dream at the end of the day.
Beautifully said. Sarah.
Okay, so I'm going to say something so shocking. We are all going to die, right? We're going to die. Oh
Yep.
my God, have we thought, if you haven't thought about your death, this might be a time. If you died, would you be happy with all the time you spent in your day?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just figured I know exactly what I want. I'm not going to feel guilty. I almost called it selfish to get this office. I'm learning how to use words that uplift me. So we need to start deciding, what do we want to do with our time? Our
Yes.
time is fleeting. Do we want to be in love? Do we want, and that doesn't even mean romantically. Do we want to be in love with what we're doing in the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really this year we all need to be aware. We need to be self-aware and decide, what am I doing with my time? Let me change it. Let me make it more enjoyable. Does this bring me joy? Does this bring me joy? It doesn't bring me joy right now, but maybe later I'll do it. I'll be in a better mind space later. So that's my message.
Both
Love it.
beautiful, beautiful messages, not to be a pun there, but what a lovely love conversation. And it fits into where I'll end. And I'm going to have Sadie come back for the final words. I say this in all of my shows. Guys, it's time to take your power back. When I say power, this is exactly what I'm referring to. The power is being human, having experiences, and also being logical and smart and showing wisdom in the decisions we make. Sadie?
Wow, that's all I'm gonna say, and because new is our jam. We always do new things, but this is really what the spirit, I would say, like, and now we're just seeing it in action, right? Like here we are, small business entrepreneurs supporting one another, and th this is why it's such a great community here, Lori.
It is. What a powerful, powerful show. So, Sarah, thank you for agreeing to be on. Thank you for dragging Laura in. Laura, thank you for being dragged in. I didn't know
Thank
where we
you.
were going to go when we started, but I just had a feeling like this could be a beautiful conversation. And I guess I was the hostess with the mostest because I think I brought it together with some structure and process. So, with that, guys, I have to say goodbye. As you know, Sadie will stay behind. She will make sure the chat stays open. So, if there's any last conversation you guys want to have amongst yourself, Laura and Sarah's information is in there. Please do reach out to them. And with that, I will say thank you for watching Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams, and I will see everybody next week. Bye, everybody. Bye, Laura and
Thank
Sarah. See
you.
you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Alrighty, guys. So you know the drill. I'm gonna hang out. I'm dropping stuff in the chat, but I just didn't want to get too much information in there so you guys, can't copy, can't do a little clicking away. But I just put Lori's webinars in there. Let me put in our guest information in there for you so you guys can contact as well. If you need anything, let me know, okay? Because I love sharing information with you folks. All right, talk to you soon.